creature who has an insatiable love for the dead.
I kick ass for the Lord.
Your move, creep.
You want to get nuts? Come on. Let's get
Welcome back to the Undead Basement, everyone. It's JD here. And before we start today, let me ask you a question. Do you read Sutter Kane? John Carpenter is a director who needs no introduction. Hell, me saying that he needs no introduction should probably go without saying. Any horror fan, nay general movie fan, should probably be familiar with at least one of his movies. From Halloween to The Thing, from Escape from New York to They Live, and from Christine to Big Trouble in Little China, his influence on horror, action, and sci-fi is staggering. However, all those movies mentioned came out in the 80s. Less talked about is Carpenter's 90s work. Mostly because there's not much to talk about. For whatever reason, Carpenter was never able to match the same quality of his 80s movies in the 90s. Movies like Memoirs of an Invisible Man, Escape from LA, Vampires, Village of the Damned, and Ghosts from Mars, whatever you think about them, I actually like Escape from LA, they definitely weren't able to match the same level of quality Carpenter had in the 80s. However, one movie that he made in the 90s that is without a doubt one of his best movies that he ever made, and easily his best movies of that decade, is 1995's In the Mouth of Madness.
The riots began because the stores could not meet the demand of Sutter Kane's novel, In the Mouth of Madness.
Kane disappeared 2 months ago without a trace. He's the guy that writes horror books.
You can forget about Stephen King. Kane outsells them all. I need to know if he's alive or dead, and I need that book.
It's a setup. I just have to work out how it's set up.
Kane's writing has been known to have an effect on his readers.
Starring Sam Neill from Jurassic Park, Jurgen Prochnow, Julie Carmen, David Warner, John Glover, Charlton Heston and his cold dead hands, and featuring an early appearance from everyone's favorite youngling killer, Hayden Christensen. The movie takes great influence from the works of H.P. Lovecraft, while also satirizing the popularity of horror authors like Stephen King, leading to a rather interesting metatextual narrative on the nature of fandom and the blurred lines between fiction and reality. The story here involves insurance investigator John Trent being sent out on an assignment by a publishing company to locate the super popular horror author Sutter Kane, who is gone missing during the hype campaign for his latest book, In the Mouth of Madness. Meanwhile, Kane's fans are all going crazy on the streets committing random acts of violence due to the gradual influence of his books. Trent, sensing a con, decides to go along with the search anyways, which leads him to a creepy small town that was thought to be fictional, and what he finds there will not only challenge his sanity, but also reality itself. The cast here is top-notch with a bevy of great character actors. Sam Neill and Jurgen Prochnow easily give the most notable performances, however, with Sam Neill selling himself very well as a man going slowly mad, and Jurgen Prochnow being super sinister without even saying a word, and even more sinister when he does. The makeup and creature effects were handled by the always great team of Greg Nicotero, Howard Berger, and Robert Kurtzman, with the monsters fitting the very Lovecraft-inspired atmosphere with lots of tendrils and tentacles. Thank God this ain't a hentai. You don't see a whole lot of them, par for the course for any monster movie, but the flashing imagery and lights definitely give off a very creepy, atmospheric vibe to the monsters. Now, the visual effects in the movie were handled by none other than Industrial Light and Magic. Yeah, ILM worked on a John Carpenter movie. Can you imagine if John Carpenter ever worked on the Star Wars franchise?
Look, Lori, it looks like I have the high ground after all.
Now, the score for the movie, like most Carpenter movies, was handled by Carpenter himself, with help from Jim Lang, who worked on Hey Arnold of all things. Typical of most Carpenter's scores, it's very moody and serves the atmosphere well. Of particular note, however, is the opening theme. Now, originally, Carpenter wanted to use for his opening theme the king of overplayed songs, Metallica's Enter Sandman. But for whatever reason, probably Lars, they couldn't use it. So Carpenter made an instrumental sound alike. Listen to it and you will never not hear it.
He fucking left the band!
As I said before, the movie takes a lot of influence from the works of Lovecraft, to the point of lifting whole dialogue passages from some of his books in certain scenes. In a way, you could say this is the best Lovecraft movie we've ever gotten. Not that there's a whole lot of competition for that. Sorry, Color Out in Space. The feeling of dread throughout the movie is palpable and will make you feel uneasy as the story unfolds. Speaking of the story, it's quite engaging and will keep you guessing as to what is really happening. Generally considered John Carpenter's last great movie, let alone the best movie he made in the 90s, In the Mouth of Madness should definitely rank among some of his best work. It's certainly one of his most narratively interesting, and it definitely delivers on the atmosphere, dread, and imagery. Along with a great cast and interesting story, this movie will definitely drive you mad. Now, Shout Factory did release a Blu-ray of this movie about a few years ago, but sadly all I have is this box standard Blu-ray that I got for like $15 at some secondhand store. It's not bad. It's got some decent features, namely commentary and really a commentary. But it's ultimately just, again, very plain Jane and box standard. Picture quality's fine, sound quality's fine, but you're better off buying the Shout Factory release. That is all the time we have for today's show. Don't forget to drop a like, subscribe, comment, and check us out on Facebook and Instagram. I'm JD, and I will see you next time.